Hey, Clemson family, the Elite Retreat 2025 event has brought a new meaning to the term Roy Bus because the night before it got started, Clemson got a commit and he said, hey, the rest of y'all come too. Total of 7 commits in 5 days. Just amazing. It's hard to remember a stretch like that, isn't it, Daniel? I'm Bill Zimmerman. This is the Reign Supreme Ollie podcast.
I'm Daniel Shirley. I was going to ask that question. When's the last time Clemson had a run like this in recruiting? Just a wave of recruits in a week. And I don't remember one, Bill. They've had good recruits. They've had great classes, but I don't remember, a stretch like this in a week where they just went boom, boom, boom. I mean, every time you get an alert on your phone, you're thinking, oh, there's another one, right? And so it's been a great run. It started Friday night before they even, or was it Thursday night or Friday night before
Friday.
they even started the retreat? And I think elite retreat is a good way to phrase it. But I like what you're seeing in this class, and you know what I feel. You know how I feel. Offensive line, offensive line, offensive line, and boom, boom, boom. They're hitting there in this class, and they're big, and they look physical, and that's what I want to see. They've already got two quarterbacks in this class, which, I mean, when's the last time Clemson took two quarterbacks in a class? So you don't really have to worry about the quarterback spot right now, but you needed to hit the offensive line, and they've done that, especially in the last week.
A lot of guys telling Matt Luke, I'll be there for you, leaning on our little thumbnail at the start there. I couldn't figure out how to pick
Your
one guy.
thumbnail.
I couldn't figure out how to pick one guy or a handful of guys when you've got 7 commits in 5 days. And I'm sorry, this is just a side hobby. I don't have time to cut out 7 guys and put them all in front of the stadium.
I
But
hope people get the reference
I hope so too. I mean, we're
because I
kind of
do.
make we're
I
kind
do.
of revealing what olds we are. If our gray isn't already doing it, that sure does. But the show lives on in reruns, and
Hey, as long as it's
having fun
gray
with
and
that.
it's there, that's all that matters.
That's right. A couple other guys saying I'll be there for you were a couple of receivers and Naeem Burrows and Connor Salmon. Some work left to do in the front seven, but even Tom Allen got in on the act with a couple of defensive backs there at the end. Let me go ahead and pop that up on the screen. But I'll tell you what, after last year, I just wasn't expecting such a an impact early on. And when you saw, of course, last year you also saw a lot of guys decommit. I hope that was because of how the defense was trending that year. Hopefully, he's going to bounce back a little more this year and be more what we are used to seeing with Clemson football is that these commits actually stick and make it to campus, which just wasn't the case last year. But you are now up to, I believe, 12 recruits. I should have put numbers on it and child-proofed it for myself. But again, you look at the guys who committed. You had Adam Guthrie on Friday. You have Grant Wise and Chance Barkley during this event. Naeem Burrows, Connor Salmon, I just mentioned. And then Marcel Gibson and Caden Gebhart joining Shavar Young Jr. in the backfield. You mentioned the quarterbacks were previously committed, as was Braden Williams on that offensive line, and then tight end Tavion Wilson, another early take before this got started. But man, they more than doubled the size of this class with the elite retreat, and it's a new day, it's a new game in all of college football, and has been for a couple of years now. And Clemson, I guess you would have to say, playing a little bit of catch up by finally talking about rev share numbers, by finally putting NIL out there a little more deliberately, perhaps. I think you have to. And I haven't seen a lot of details on what they're saying, how they're saying it, but it's a more competitive environment. And after those decommits, that I believe you could say 7 in total, there were really 5 or 6 toward the end that made a big difference, especially on that defense. Then you see Clemson start to be a little more active in the transfer portal. And these early commits are still happening on campus. Dabo Sweeney stressing that high school is where he wants to really grow this roster. He wants to bring guys in early, cultivate them, make sure that they get a broad-based, good freshman year, not just football on the field. Get into Paw Journey, get into the NIL studio and the personal branding, get into Paw Bistro for that matter, and the 100 yards of wellness, and all those things that make you not just a complete player, but a complete human being. And you even saw Adam Guthrie, I think it was, took to social media and kind of shoot down the thought of, hey, Clemson bought a bunch of players. They finally caught up. He said, no, this really is about who you are as a person and that holistic development and really want to be here, wanting to be here for reasons more than the bag.
The They bought players criticism Is that really a criticism anymore? I mean, this isn't a day of the bagman, right?
Right.
That you and I grew up on. And look, if you didn't think your team paid players in the 80s, you're wrong. Okay, everybody did. It's just now that it's out and everybody knows what's going on. But it's the Clemson approach is still going to be the Clemson approach. Yes, players are getting paid now by Clemson, uh, but all the other stuff is still there, and our that's just the way it's going to be with Dabo Swinney. As long as he's the head coach, that's going to be the focus, and that's going to be the approach. Now, revenue sharing is coming. NIL is here, right? Other ways for players to get reimbursed. So was Clemson behind on that stuff? I guess I don't know. We don't really know the behind the scenes workings of all this stuff, but this was such a great start to this class, or not a start because they already had signed or had some players committed, but this is a great boost to this class to where you hope there aren't any decommits from this group. Now, is that realistic? Not really in this day and age. I mean, they're going to be decommits at some point.
Major League
But
Baseball would love to get that top name on the list to decommit, wouldn't they?
yeah, but
Yeah.
you just think about, okay, well, let's say, how many offensive linemen are on this in this four now, right? Four
Yeah.
offensive linemen.
And
Well, if
still
one of the,
looking.
right, if one of them decommits, still got three, right? If one of those quarterbacks commits, still got one. Go get another one, right? So you need to work on the defensive line a little bit. You need some linebackers, but I think this is just a really great, kind of boost to this class. And Bill, this was a new approach too. Remember, this was the retreat had never been in March,
Right.
and the fear was, well, maybe they had it too early. Guys felt like they were committed too long, so maybe move it back and change things up a little bit. You know what that is? That's this program being adaptable and being flexible and
That's
versatile.
right.
All those words that we like to use about coaching staffs. Well, that's what this group is doing, and you got to like to see it for sure. And I love the Burrows pickup as much as any of them on here. Barclay, big man. I want to see as many big dudes as possible. Big dudes and speed. Sign me up. And then fill in from there. But it's just been a great week, and you hope they can keep it up.
Yep. I do want to point out real quick the heights and weights you see here. I take those as an average of the four major recruiting services, Rivals, 24/7 on three, ESPN. They all have different numbers. I don't want to pick one, be right about some guys, wrong about others. I'd rather average them all out, be in the neighborhood, round it off the nearest 5 pounds, round it off the nearest inch. So that's what you're seeing right there on that list. uh, Braden Williams, Adam Guthrie, 6'8" and 6'7". And there are some heavier weights for a lot of those guys, by the way. And they may be more updated. They may be a little also less reliable sometimes. I know from my days having worked in the recruiting field briefly that sometimes you get some numbers that can't be verified. And some services are willing to put those out there. Tom Luganville at ESPN is among the people who said, hey, unless we get it from a camp and verifiable and independent, we're not just going to throw a number out there. And that's another reason I like to average it all out, right? Because someone may get that updated number and it's right. So apologies to all the players and dads who are like, no, we're an inch taller and 7 pounds. Well, we kind of have a responsibility to sort of average that all out and have it come out in the wash. And I will keep watching those services for updates, and we'll update this average as the season goes along, or as the recruiting season goes along. You and I
When
do
those
love
ne-
to,
when those next seven commits join the class, we'll
right.
update and put the board back up there for
Right. So what, 3 days at this rate, right?
them.
The way they've been going.
Brad Brownell
Al,
said, "Hey, wait a minute. Let us talk about the basketball team for a week. Let's don't."
we'll get to that next episode, as a matter of
Yes,
fact, which
right.
which we already recorded.
Absolutely.
By the time we post that, people are going to know the opponent, and we don't have that in there just yet. We've still got the Syracuse or SMU thing in there. I also want to bring things back to actual football on the field because spring practice is happening. Let me take the recruits down off the screen here. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the position battles that are going on. I'll talk about one that's a little under the radar first, is replacing Marcus Tate. And is that going to have to account for any changes? And I don't know that we're really going to see an answer to that out of the spring, but I just did want to make sure I didn't forget to bring that up. I do think the place that I'm going to be looking the hardest this year is probably linebacker because we know we brought in Will Helt at defensive end. We know defensive end needs help. I would love to see a little more of Jaheim Lawson getting a few things down pat and creating that depth. But linebacker, you've got Wade Wood back. You've got some new guys in. Sammy Brown presumably will join the starting lineup this year, and you wonder how that's going to fit. You also have Jeremiah Alexander coming in from Alabama as a transfer, and you're going to want to see how he fits in. Tom Allen is probably going to coach linebackers a little differently than Goodwin did, just as he did it a little differently than Venables did. He is going to slide right in to paying attention to linebackers. You're also going to have Ben Boulware as linebackers coach. And boy, talk about a guy I will never forget being in the stands in Tampa as Jalen Hurts is calling a play. And Boulware is like, everybody get over here. You got to get to this side. And he was dead on. And they had a huge tackle for loss. And then, of course, it turns into a touchdown drive anyway, and that just set the table for one of the legendary plays in Clemson history. But Boulware has a chance to really emerge, and I think he's got a great mentor in Tom Allen. So how you're going to see Wade Wood how you're going to see Sammy Brown, how you're going to see Jeremiah Alexander take the field and what situations, and just to see their traits and just to see what might look a little different, maybe in their tackling, maybe in the angles that they take. You can't get a lot out of scheme in a spring game, but you can see what they are working on physically.
Yeah, I love the linebacker talk because I think that is going to be really interesting. You know, I love the talent there. I absolutely love the talent there. Sammy Brown, when he was on the field last year, was competitive, and you wonder why wasn't he on the field in the fourth quarter against South Carolina?
Yeah, you do.
And we've seen other sites talk about that and write about that. I'm going to go safety because who fills the Mickens spot,
Right.
right? I know Mickens was not a 5-star recruit. He wasn't the fastest guy. He wasn't the biggest guy, but damn, he was reliable. And he was there when a play needed to be made. He made a play, and he was always, not always, but for the most part, he was in the spot where he was supposed to be in the right spot. So, you know, you have to wonder who fills that role of being doing the job. You know, not trying to do somebody else's job, not trying to do too much, just do your job in the scheme. And who's going to fill that role is going to be really interesting for me coming out of spring.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got Kylan Griffin, who's got a lot of experience back there. You've got Ricardo Jones from your neck of the woods, who
Right.
looked really good when he was able to get on the field. Talk about Sammy Brown. You wonder why he wasn't on more. I also wondered why Ricardo Jones wasn't out there more. You've also got Kylan Griffin, who I mentioned. I thought he kind of took a step back from what we saw him flashing as a freshman. I'd love to see him kind of get his sea legs back under him and be the kind of reliable player that we had seen. And then another one not to forget about is Ronan Hannafin, who's
Right.
over from wide receiver
That's right.
and has been very good on special teams, got a few snaps out there toward the end of the year as a safety and kind of earned some compliments on the fly just, very early on. Now, like they get to bake it in a little bit. They all have that chance from all those different angles. You're talking about guys with very different backgrounds, and plus you got Khalil Barnes, who you want on the field as many plays as you can get him. Question is, what's
Absolutely.
the best role for him? He did very well in sort of that nickel safety as a freshman. He struggled early last year, kind of got his feet under him toward the end of the year. We saw more of the Khalil Barnes that we were used to by the time the season was wrapping up. Lot of variables there, and like I said, guys who just had very different years last year and are all coming at it in a different way. You still got Mickey Kahn as a safeties coach, but how is Tom Allen going to see those guys, and how is he going to want them working under Kahn to try to fit into the overall picture? And then corner, I think you're set with the starters, but I would love to see more of a rotation behind Avion Terrell and behind Ashton Hampton. I have very high hopes for Hampton. I think Terrell, I wouldn't call it a sophomore slump, but he had some moments where you really wondered. And it seemed like a lot of times when they had Reed playing him back off a receiver and giving a receiver space, that was when he kind of struggled. He likes to be in thick man coverage. He likes to be right on top of a guy and working hard. And we'll see again how that fits for Tom Allen. But again, how do they work in more of a rotation behind those guys? How's Jaden Lucas going to fit in with this team? And then what are you going to do for nickel? Are you going to move a corner over to be nickel? Are you going to move a safety in to be nickel? That there's so much to work with there. And I think you're right. I think it starts with the safety.
Yeah, I think it's the best five, whoever they are. And if it's, I love Hampton. I love Hampton's competitiveness. That Virginia Tech interception to me, where he
Yeah.
caught it from behind his back right after getting beat the play before,
Yes.
showed me everything I need to know about Ashton Hampton. I love his competitiveness. He's a confident dude. He's a big guy. So if it's him and Terrell at corner, maybe it is Hannafin playing nickel, and maybe you move Barnes back to more of a traditional safety. I'm not sure, but there's talent there. It's just how it fits, and then offensively, you mentioned replacing Tate. You got to replace the tight end too. And how does the running back situation play out? I love Adam Randall at tailback. Maybe not as the lead guy. It sounds like Davidson might be the guy there. To be the running back wearing that
Maybe.
number 9. I love running backs wearing number 9, right? But
Confidence taking that
yeah,
number, huh?
I like Randall at tailback, and all you hear about him from the coaches and the other players is he's such a leader on this team. And, maybe that's the best thing for him is to be playing running back and see if that can, get him more involved in the offense. Because he wasn't going to play much at receiver, not
Right.
with the talent that's coming back. Now Brown hopefully is healthy,
I really
right?
want to see how he looks, yeah,
Right.
individually.
With him and Williams and the two freshmen coming back now, sophomores, we saw how big of a contribution they had. Now they're sophomores; they're going to be grown men going into next year. So maybe Randall can actually contribute at running back more than he did at wide receiver.
Yeah, well, and you could see some two back sets where they're going to have Randall split out wide. Maybe he'll be the lone setback, and then you go empty backfield and he moves out wide again. You've got a lot of possibilities with getting a defense to really overthink things when you line Randall up back there as well as outside. Olson Pat Henry, I love his talent at tight end, and we'll see. You know, Jake
Hey, don't forget
Brenningstool.
Josh Sapp too. I
Oh, I
love
know.
Josh Sapp.
Big
Yeah,
fan of that guy. And then you
yeah.
got Bentoncourt with his freshman season under his belt. I feel like this is a group of tight ends that might fit what Riley did at TCU a little more closely than Brenningstool kind of fit into that scheme. And I'm no X's and O's expert, and that can be a bad guess on my part, but I'm really excited to see what those guys will do and how they'll fit in. And then, look, for wide receiver depth, I don't want to leave Cole Turner out of the conversation because that's a guy who has flashed at times, and maybe now just another year he's going to have a chance to uh, get some reps on a more regular basis. I think it's going to be
And
running
stay
back by
healthy.
committee.
And stay
Yeah,
healthy too.
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of been the story for a lot of that room in a lot of ways. I think running back will be by committee to start. I think we'll see Randall out there. I think we'll see Jay Haynes out there. And I think we'll see Gideon Davidson out there. And it could be like Travis Etienne's freshman year, where the freshman has the opportunity. And I'm not going to compare Gideon Davidson to Travis Etienne. I'm just no. that
Not
was a
going to
that
do
was
it until
that
not
was
going to
a
do that until we see it. Right?
right.
We're
That was
not going
a
to do that.
different level of talent that guy brought to the table, and he was able to show it early, uh, but not week one, right? So we could see a little bit of that out of Gideon Davidson. I think we've talked about that previously on the show, but he's someone who could definitely be in the mix by the middle of the season. And he will have a chance in week one against LSU. I would think he's going to get on the field in some way. Although, last year we didn't see Wesco and TJ Moore out there against
Right.
Georgia. So
At
be
all.
pa-
Right.
be
Yeah.
patient as a fan, no matter what you see out of him or don't see out of him in the spring game. Gideon Davidson is going to have a whole year, just like we're about to say in the next episode about a game is 60 minutes. A season is 12 plus games long, and just because Gideon Davidson doesn't play the first week doesn't mean he's not going to be a factor during the season at all. So
I'll be surprised if he doesn't play the first week. But if he
yeah,
does, if he doesn't, But you remember, Bill, how much we loved that two back set with Shipley and Maffa? Remember the end of the
Hmm.
2023 year, how important that set was for
Right.
that team? I mean, that became the team's kind of main set because they ran the ball so well. Maybe this team uses that some. I'd like to see it.
I'd love to see it. I think it works, and Riley's got a history of doing that under Sonny Dykes at TCU, so we may see it a little bit more. I was surprised we didn't see it last year though, so we'll find out how
I
that
was
goes.
too.
I thought it would have been a great way to get a little bit of load off of Phil Maffa, who hopefully is going to have a great NFL draft, and then also get some of those younger guys once Haynes got healthy, but also Jarvis Green. Also, Keith Adams has a way that he can function more as part of a two back set than he would as a single back there. I would love to see, and then David Ezeaname also is another guy who could leap
Don't
up
forget about
and take,
him. Right.
yeah, he could leap up and take hold of that starting job at some point in the season as well. Very talented. I think there have been some rumblings about protecting the football with him. Uh, that's a prerequisite. I don't want to see the fumbles like we saw 2 seasons ago out of Shipley and Klubnik and even Maffa a little bit out of that year. I want to see guys protecting the football, and that's got to be a priority. So
If you
again,
don't
you get
protect the ball, you can't play.
no,
I'm sorry,
no,
at any position. The
right.
ball is the thing. And if you don't protect it, then you can't be on the field. Somebody
Yep,
else has to play.
absolutely. And I've been rough on Cade Klubnik. I was a Klubnik doubter, probably deeper into the season than most. I would say last year, even though he showed such tremendous strides, sometimes you just see him like leave his feet and he's sideways like he's on strings and Mission Impossible, and he's still trying to throw the ball. And then you look at that costly interception against South Carolina. With I'm not amber colored glasses, but I'm still not convinced that was an interception at the end there, where he's trying to unload it to
Right.
Maffa and threw it poorly. One of the few things that are hard to believe about that game, quite frankly. But I want to see that polish from Klubnik. And again, that's not something we're really going to see on the orange and white game day, which by the way is Saturday, April 5th. You'll be wanting to look for that on television. I'm sure somebody will pick it up, probably ESPN or ACC Network or one of those. But you can watch for I think in last year's spring game, he looked like he did against Georgia. He was unsure. He was really overthinking. He was, processing instead of playing. And I would really like to see him just kind of come out and wing it a little bit, play a little more fancy free in the spring game. And, we're not going to see the system that they're going to run with all these new guys. But again, it's about looking at all the individuals. You just want to see Klubnik carry over that confidence that he had uh, really from week 2 on the rest of the season. You
He
want to
looked
see
good.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to see him exude that again, even in the spring game for the snaps that he's going to get, which hopefully won't be a lot.
I bet he doesn't play many in
No,
the spring game. I hope he doesn't play many, right? We know what he is, I think, by this point. I want to see Vizina. I'd like to see the younger guys play a little bit more, and
yep, Chris
then we go.
Denson.
Yeah, I'd love to see that, and because he's such an athlete, and now the game's got to slow down for him some, but I think, yeah, I think we know what we have at the starting quarterback spot, or the Clemson fans know what they have at the starting quarterback spot. What is Vizina? And I think a lot of people are still doubting him,
They
and
are.
that's okay. I think that's fair. You haven't seen him do much, but I thought last year when he played, he looked better than he did the year before when he got on the field.
Right.
And again, I think you're seeing growth out of him, and we'll see. But, um, I'm obviously quarterback is one we're always going to look at. I'll tell you what to look out for is punter, right? How does the punting situation look? The punting situation last year was not good. And we were really excited when Swanson announced he was coming back, and he really took a step back. And we're not
Yeah.
trying to single out and pick on anybody, but he was not nearly as good last year as he was the year before. And that hurt this team. I think it hurt them against South Carolina. They never were able to flip the field against South Carolina, right? Even when they had that game where it looked like they had it won, and then that fumble, not a fumble thing that they called, uh, you know,
Yep.
against Phil Maffa. But I think there's a lot there of pieces there. For Clemson to have a really really good team this year, and we'll want to see it on display in the spring game for sure.
A lot of people say you can't really learn anything about a team in the spring game, but I love watching it just to see what guys' skill sets are looking like and how they're approaching different situations. And again, it's not about team scheme, but it's just about, hey, what skills have guys been working on? I think
Yeah.
tackling routes and wrapping guys up, I think that's going to be on display. I sure hope so. Tom Allen has talked a lot about it since he got to Clemson as defensive coordinator, so he sees the need. He's talked about the practice needing to be different in regards to tackling. And certainly that's going to translate into games. And this will be one little peek at, hey, can guys wrap a guy up and bring him down more easily? So that may be another thing just across the board on that defense to look for.
Yep. Yep.
I
No
think
doubt.
it's going to be fun. I'm just a spring game junkie. If I can find my way up there, it's a I believe admission is still free, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. So if I can find my way up there and crash with some family close to campus, I'll definitely figure that out for sure. So we
Well,
will keep
somebody
you
just
posted.
invited themselves to somebody's house for the spring game.
Did I?
Sounded like you did. Hey, I love
I
going to
meant
spring
sleep in the
games.
back of the car. Sorry.
I love going to spring games. I hate covering spring games as a
Really?
journalist. There's nothing worse than having to write a story about a spring game where you have no idea what any of it means.
And
Absolutely nothing.
the coach quotes are typically not very specific, are
Right.
they, in that
Right.
situation? So that's
Right.
very true. Well, we will keep you posted with what we see with our eyes leading into it. Hey, we got a guest. I love it.
Yes. Sorry
Uh,
about that.
I love it. I wish our little guys would come on camera more often.
There she
So,
is.
yep. We will keep you posted with what we see on the field. All our social media at Clemson Kickoff, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky are the three that we tend to use the most, trying to make sure we reach everybody there. What did we not say? What did we say that you disagree with? YouTube.com/Clemson Kickoff. Hey, most of you are catching this show on YouTube. Be sure you go ahead and jump down in the comments there and tell us what we should have said. Tell us what didn't get said, and maybe hit subscribe and help our count there a little bit. It helps us keep the show free. So tomorrow we'll post this as soon as possible. Tomorrow you'll get the basketball postseason preview, and beyond that, we will keep you posted as often as we can. A little health thing going on, some extended family stuff going on. It's just pulled me away, but we are glad to be back and talking Clemson. And until the next episode, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.